The Howard Stern Show.
Now, this Saturday Night Live reunion,
Yeah.
so many questions.
Great.
It was a great night, right?
It was a blast.
It really was spectacular to look back on 40 years of Saturday Night Live, which is an amazing institution. And,
fun to be with all the old cast members.
Yeah, there was something about it where I felt like everybody kind of left their baggage at the door. And it was really lovely. I think...
By baggage, you mean they didn't come in with big entourages and egos, and
it didn't seem like people were carrying old slights with them. It didn't seem like people were looking to even old scores.
In other words, like some of the stuff I know about, and we had Dan Aykroyd on the next day, was great. Some of the things I know about were like Eddie Murphy appearing. He was pissed off that David Spade had made a bad joke about him and this and that, but Eddie did show up.
He showed up. He showed up to rehearsal the day before. He was... it's very hard to say what somebody's feeling, but it seemed like he enjoyed being back. It seemed like that was something he wanted to do.
A lot of the criticism of Eddie Murphy specifically was he got up there, he wasn't funny, like nothing was prepared, and even Dan Aykroyd said, he said it diplomatically, that he loves Eddie, and Eddie saved Saturday Night Live, blah, 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 But at the same point, Eddie could have gotten up, even if he had just, Dan said there's so many people in the audience that he could have even pointed out and kind of riffed on or something.
Yeah.
Didn't it strike you as odd that he didn't do something funny?
Well, look, it was less, I would say I'm with everybody else, it was less than I wanted, but it's very hard. He had a very specific thing happen to him that no one else had. I mean, Chevy had it a little bit, but... it's a lot harder to be funny when you are introduced with the gravitas of here is a person who meant so much to the show. The build-up is so much, which is the last thing you ever want in comedy.
Right.
Is someone to say, here, ladies and gentlemen, be quiet. The funniest person you've ever seen. So there's a weird... I get the choice.
Right.
I wish it was a different choice, but
it's Saturday Night Live. There's all week to prepare.
Yes.
In a sense. Somebody could have helped him, or he certainly doesn't need help. He's a funny man.
Yeah.
Something could have been done. I was shocked by his lack of preparation.
Well, there were people who were pitching ideas, and again, he was, I think, almost... different people were in charge of different things, and there were different teams that were sort of in charge of the Maya Martin short piece, or the team that was in charge of Jeopardy, and everybody was pro the idea of having Eddie be a part of their thing, so he was getting pitched ideas.
So Norm did an interesting thing, and I wonder how you feel about this.
Right.
So Norm has a Twitter account.
Yes.
And he decided to reveal what went on with Eddie Murphy. He said Eddie was going to be doing Bill Cosby impression that Keenan ended up doing.
Right.
And but he, at the last minute, said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to kick a guy when he's down.
Right.
And Bill Cosby, I'm not doing an impression of him. Was it right of Norm to tell that story? Because isn't that Eddie's story, whether or not he wants to tell that?
I wouldn't have told it. I feel the same way. Well, again, I think when you're at SNL, you're seeing so many different things behind the scenes, and I get that the world wants to hear everything that's going on back there.
And you should feel protected.
Yeah, you don't want to draw back the curtain. It's
sure.
Yeah,
I mean, again,
there are
and people have for years been making choices when they get interviewed about SNL about how much to give away and how much. And again, there are often things to give away that are yours to give away.
Right.
So yeah, but
so Norm shouldn't have done that. But Norm's a wild man.
Norm played it, I think, in a way that is very Norm Macdonald, and I couldn't be a bigger Norm Macdonald fan. And I think that
too.
Those who love Norm were probably happy. I think, though, and maybe it's, I don't know, maybe just the time I was on the show, or I don't know why, but I felt like that wasn't.
Do you think Lorne might call Norm and say, Norm, I just want to say to you that when we have people and we're backstage and everyone's kind of feeling vulnerable because they have to work stuff out, it's sort of the unwritten law that you don't reveal what goes on when people make decisions.
At this point, Lorne is smart enough to know, like, when the people come to your show and then they leave the show, like, you're not their parent anymore. It's not your job to sort of tell them how to behave.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the show was spectacular. Now, the story goes, and you can tell me the truth here, that your studio, where you shoot your show, turned into sort of the green room.
Yes.
Okay. And you had booze back there.
Yes.
And a lot of partying. So when people were waiting to go on, they would go to your studio and hang out?
It was more where people would go after their bit. You would sort of sit in your A-list seats, and then you do your bit, and you could either go back and sit, but I think anyone who worked at SNL has that moment where they remember exactly how many commercials there are.
Yeah.
And you start thinking, or I could go in that other studio where they're serving booze and talk to old writers and other cast members and old guests.
So you would set up a little thing.
Yes, I should say I didn't set it up.
But you had a little party,
right?
And you sat back there.
Yeah.
And so like Bill Murray would come in. And
Will
then
Ferrell
Will Ferrell
Yeah.
would come in, and what a great room to be in.
It was outstanding.
Was it outstanding because was everyone funny? Does everyone try to out-funny each other and top each other in that room, and they're drinking?
It was a lot sweeter than that. I know it's a little disappointing, but it was a lot more just people being really happy to see old faces. And there were a lot of old crew there. And, people from the writing staff of years gone past. And so more than anything else, it just seemed like sweet interactions.
Would it have not been a fabulous opportunity if you had turned that room into an informal sort of discussion, like had a camera back there and did the after party for your TV show? I feel you should have done that.
That would have been great, but that, of course, wasn't where the after party was. As soon as that show was over, everybody was on buses going over to the
What a great
plaza.
show. You sitting back there, everyone having cocktails after Saturday Night Live, and then you sitting there and just taping whatever goes on with those people. Just like almost like Playboy After Dark.
But again, that's crossing the same line of like, once cameras are there, do people have the comfort level to have that safety to actually do and say what they want to be doing?
I could have seen the camera opening up on you and Amy making out.
Right,
and then,
sure. Wyden, my wife's there. She doesn't look happy.
Yeah, right. She prosecutes you.
Wyden, there's cops.
The Howard Stern Show.